back to Everyday Therapy. My name is Christa, and I'm here with my co-host, Barrett, and we are licensed therapists. We are trying to make therapy more approachable and empower you to become the best version of yourself.
And we are really excited today because it sounds like something that we would tell a little kid going to elementary school for the first day.
Yes.
And so I'm struggling with that, like how to get people to like you.
Right.
And so like be nice.
Yep.
And don't interrupt and things like that. And it seems almost insulting to talk about this. And yet it is something, ironically, we struggle with from elementary school to everyday life as an adult still.
Oh, I completely agree. There's days where in my everyday interactions with people, I'm like, I could teach a class. Not just for myself or not just for other people, but for myself too. Things that I do where I'm like, why do that's not a good way to like get people to like me.
Yes.
And we're not talking about liking you in like you have to become this fake person or become like a people pleaser or anything like that. This is like just generally socially, how do I interact with others in a way that's reinforcing?
Yes.
Where they want to keep interacting with me and come close to me.
And I want to reinforce how powerful this is.
Yes.
Because we talk about it to our kids going into elementary school, but look at even as adults, how we chase likes on social media.
Oh, that is such a good point. I didn't even think of that.
We live for the likes from other people on social media. And that reminds me, too, of something I learned years ago, which is super helpful, super powerful, how we live to get A words from other people.
Okay.
So A words would be like attention, acceptance, affirmation, affection. And so approval. Yes. So we live to get other people's A words. And so we will, when we have to perform in order to get an A word in a relationship, that relationship becomes toxic. So this is how we get people to like us a lot of times, is by performing, doing something, doing anything to get that A word from somebody else. And when we are in a relationship like that, it's really toxic. But I want to highlight it because we talked about just before we started the podcast, let's maybe identify some of the ineffective things we do to get people to like us or to get those A words.
Yeah, I love that. Because just for a review, the last episode, part 1, was about finding and getting people to like you. And it's just really solid things. And then we were going to continue with that conversation, but a lot of it, like you were saying, is pretty intuitive. So instead, let's talk about what doesn't work.
Yeah, the things we do.
The things we do that do not work to get the 5 A's, which I want to repeat because I think that was so great.
Yeah, go ahead.
Affection, approval, affirmation, attention. I know I'm leaving one out, but that's pretty darn good. 4 out of 5 is pretty good.
That's pretty darn good.
But that's what we're after. Okay. Yes. So this is great. So, and then we talked about social media and chasing the likes and all those things. So what do you think are things, an example of something not to do or that doesn't work?
Well, I think let's maybe sticking with the A words, some of the things we do is we kind of lose ourselves or tailor ourselves to get that A word from somebody else. So I know somebody wants this or they like this or they respect this. And so then therefore I do that for them. Almost like a little dog waiting for a treat.
A golden retriever.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that's a perfect example of golden. And then I do this for them.
Yeah.
So that I get their A words, I get their attention, I get their approval, I get their affection. And but the problem is I'm losing myself, my authentic self. Hey, there's an A word. I lose my authenticity to get those A words from another person. So specifically, what does that mean? Well, I may not want to do certain things. I may really not want to do something for somebody else.
Right.
And yet I do it. And when I do it, I'm denying myself and what I want and deferring to them and what they want. And I gradually begin to lose myself.
Right.
All because I'm trying to get somebody to like me.
So this sounds like one of those that seems like it works at first.
Yes.
Right?
Like, it does.
Right. Because at first you're like, oh, that's great. I said what they want, what I think they wanted me to say. I agreed to the things that I should have. But over time, I think that isn't something that makes someone want to keep hanging around you. Right?
Well, it can.
It can.
But I think
there's a cost.
Thank you. What's the cost? The cost is I lose myself. I don't know myself very well. I know how everybody else thinks and feels. I don't know what I think and feel and want and need. And so we do this. Consider, all the environments we can do this. We can do this in our home environment. We can do this in an education environment, like with teachers and professors.
Yep.
We can do this certainly in a work environment, right?
Yep.
And so we live for those A words. We do it on social media when we're looking for for somebody to like what we say.
Yep.
We're looking for that affirmation.
Yep.
But we're losing ourselves, and that's stressful because the thought that we have that really drives this is that the responsibility is all on me to keep this other person happy, affirming, accepting, approving, whatever. So we live with this constant pressure that the pressure's all on me to make sure everything's okay in my relationship with this person, whether it's my boss or my spouse or even my kids or my professor. That is a ton of stress.
I was going to say that sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do that all in an attempt to get people to like us.
Right. Okay. So would you say that's like being overly, how would you summarize that? Like being inauthentic or like,
oh, I like that.
Being, I don't know, people pleaser doesn't seem like it's quite hitting.
I think it's close.
It's close to people pleasing.
Yeah, I think it's close. But there's all sorts of ways you can talk about it. One is over functioning. I think I talked about Crazy Town once before.
Yeah,
I overfunction, and it's when I take responsibility for how everybody else thinks and feels at the expense of not taking any responsibility for how I think and feel. Is that a summary?
That makes total sense because it's two parts. It's not just that you were worrying about that other person and what they think and feel. You are also, part two of that is neglecting your own needs, wants, and feelings, right?
How's this for a succinct?
Yeah.
I'm losing me in order to get you.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
That's you talked about cost?
Yeah.
That's costly.
Yep. And imagine if you do that in most of your relationships.
And many of us do.
Yep. No wonder people are tired.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think about public speaking and the number one fear people have. And why is that?
Oh,
it's the belief, what do people think about me?
Oh my gosh, yes. And it's like it's too many targets to hit.
Right? Yeah, that's all about pressure,
being
responsible for how my audience feels. And I've done a lot of public speaking, and I can do okay. Mm-hmm. But when I get caught up in, people aren't liking what I'm saying. They're not responding the way I want. That joke fell flat. I've even caught myself backing up as I'm speaking because of my self-talk.
Oh my gosh.
And
body language.
Right.
Yeah.
And that just underscores, I think, the power of this. And we like to think we grow up and we mature. And sure, we can like to think that. It's just not generally true, I don't think.
Yep.
So, we lose ourselves for the sake of getting someone to like us.
Okay. Another thing that I think we do is gossip.
Ooh,
I think that's a big one, right?
Yes.
And I know for me, I'm going to just tell you right now, I've gossiped before.
What?
I know.
Oh my goodness. You've lost all my A-words.
Will you still be my friend? I've lost all your A-words. Oh no. Nightmare.
Absolutely.
And I know I've thought about it too, is like what need is getting met to gossip, right? And it's, for me, it's the feeling of I'm bonding with this other person at the cost of a third person, right? Yes. Like if I talk this and this about so-and-so with Jane, it's like we're closer now, but I not only sold my self-respect, but I also put Jane down, or not Jane, the other person down. I don't know who I lost control of my the names I was using. But person A, B, and C. Yeah.
You really underscore, I think, our drive for connection.
Yes.
Yes. And you said that so well. I want this connection with this person at the expense of the other.
Yes.
That I'm gossiping about.
And myself, right? Because I'm not only putting that other person down, but I know for me, it doesn't feel good. I don't like how I feel about myself after I gossip because I'm just like, now why did I do that?
And that's such a great question.
Right?
It really, I think, invites us to be more curious, not critical when we do it.
Right.
Because that doesn't help. But to be curious and say, just what you asked, like, wow, why did I do that? What was about that? And my guess is, in a general sense, it would be, I'm wanting connection. Right. Exactly. Or I think sometimes, too, and it might be related to connection, is I'm feeling this need to defend myself, too. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's powerful. And it is not something that we're always hypervigilant about in high school, like who's gossiping about whom. And it's certainly something we do as adults. And it's incredibly toxic in the work environment or in home situations. Yeah. I know I found that it's incredibly commonplace in families. Yes. Even my own family. And I have to be careful because there's certain relatives that I get together with them and all of a sudden well, did you hear about so-and-so, cousin Susie or whatever, right. And I don't Can you believe?
Yeah. Right, you believe what happened? Blah, blah, blah. And even telling things that like, it's not my business to tell, like just, news. Yeah. And it's almost like a gossip column, where it's like, oh, well, here's the latest on so-and-so. And so anyway, I think.
Well, it's funny you say that because when I work out, I always work out at the machine in front of ESPN. And so I'm watching sports highlights, but I'm listening to music. Okay. And so it's interesting to watch TV and not hear what they're saying. And because there's a little more objectivity to it, I think, when you watch and you're not listening to what's being said. Sure. And I look at that and I think, this is a lot of gossip. Yeah. Like, who should be the football league's MVP this year? Ooh la la. Should the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, have fired the coach? And it's like everybody's weighing in on this. Sure. And it's kind of under the guise of entertainment, but it's really gossip because people are being very judgmental towards others. Yeah. And everyone's weighing in on an opinion, and then we all sort of agree or we don't. And I thought about this as I'm working out. I'm like, this sounds a lot like high school hallways to me. Right? Yeah. Yeah, it totally is. And it's not just football, it's or sports. Oh, it's everywhere. Because really, what are they talking about? They're talking about relationships. Yep. Exactly. And anywhere relationships are, gossip will occur. Yep. Well, one thing I've kind of grappled with over the years is like, okay, if I'm around gossip, what do I do? Like, if I don't want to gossip, and there's gossip happening, or someone opens the door. Yes. What do I do? What do you do? That's a great question. How do I back out of it? Great question. I think that's a question a lot of people have and don't necessarily know how to answer. Right. Because I don't want to here's where my automatic thoughts go, is I'm thinking, if I put a stop to this, they're going to think I'm a goody two-shoes. Yes. If I'm like, let's not gossip about, They may not like you. Exactly. See? No, but this directly relates because it is that like instinctual, like, oh man, they're going to think this or this about me and I can't control that. Yeah. Right? Oh, I know. And this is what I do. Okay. I try to do. I certainly don't do it as much as I would like. Okay. And we've talked a lot about being dialectical and how we think, and meaning just being very balanced and getting away from all or nothing kind of thinking. Sure. And really what gossip is it's an all or nothing way of thinking about somebody. It's disparaging towards them as if there's nothing redemptive or good about this person either. And so I see that whether it's ESPN or I see it in our political season we're in as people vilify the other candidate consistently. It's this teeing up this person that we gossip about as all bad because of this. Yep. And so and it's more, I think, for me rather than for the other people. I just don't want to get involved in that. And yet I get sucked in. Mm-hmm. I try to be dialectical and say, I'll lead with some validation. Like, that can be really frustrating. And you know what I really appreciate? Yep. And then I'll say something that's validating. Yeah. And I find in a subtle way it's effective because it's while they're trying to incriminate the other person they're gossiping about, when I offer something validating about that person, it's sort of incriminating to the gossipers. And that's not my intention. My intention is I just don't want to get sucked in. I don't like it. And I don't think it's good in a work, home, whatever context.
Yeah.
So I try to add that, and because I don't want to be the goody two shoes either.
Which is not even necessarily what they would think, to your point, right? But
true.
But you're right. You're not like confronting anybody per se.
And I don't want to shame them.
Exactly.
Although shame is okay sometimes. I think if people are gossiping, shame's appropriate. Like,
sure.
Yeah, that's where shoulds are actually very appropriate. We should not be doing that. I think it's hard to lean into that because, what are the ramifications of doing that? Yeah, people are going to be upset with me. Now, if they're gossiping about these people and I kind of tell them to stop.
Yeah.
Well, who are they going to gossip about next, right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
All of that, I refuse to intervene because I want to get people to like me.
Right. That's
kind of keeps coming back to that.
It does.
So any other thoughts on what we can do to help ourselves not gossip? I offer really thinking dialectically about people. Like there's good things and there's really bad things.
Yep.
And that's even with me. We kind of gossip about ourselves in our own mind too.
Actually, that's so true. Oh,
I just thought of that now. Yeah. And so we need to combat that in our own self-talk so that I'm offering a balanced perspective of myself. Yeah, I blow it. I look at me and I'm like, I can't believe I did that again. What is my problem? And look what some of the good things I am doing, and I can feel really good about this. Yep. So whether it's internal or interpersonal, we need to offer kind of this counterbalance.
Yep, I totally agree. One more thought on the gossip. Have we talked before about the concept of feeling one up and one down?
I don't think so.
Okay. So briefly, I think gossip is an attempt to get back into the one-up position. So sometimes if we're not feeling quite good enough about ourselves, which is pretty frequent, pretty common, right?
Yeah.
Gossip, I think, is trying to get us we're feeling one down already.
Yes.
Not good enough. So if we think, if I gossip about this person, and this isn't just for the relationship, but oftentimes it is.
Right.
So it's an attempt at, getting closer with someone. But we're also kind of like, well, if I put so-and-so down behind their back, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to feel one up and better about myself. Well, it doesn't work. But when we were talking about what to do if I find myself in a gossip situation, is what am I feeling one down about? And just being aware. Just like if I'm feeling like I want to gossip about someone, I must be feeling in the one down position, right? So then it's like, okay, I want to be in neutral. I don't need to be better than anybody else. I don't need to be less than anybody else. But let me get back into neutral before I launch into a whole thing about so-and-so and what they did. And
I really like that. I was thinking as you were speaking in terms of what's wrong with being in the one down position? Why can't I assume a position of humility regularly and say, I want to keep learning. And I think we were talking even before this, before the podcast, how in work environments, you want to just keep achieving. So you can kind of put your resume out there and say, hey, look what I'm doing. And I think it's a lot, that puts a lot of pressure on us. It's a lot more freeing just to be in a one down position and say, I want to just keep learning. Yeah, I really messed up on that.
That's interesting. Because I think that admitting you're wrong and that you don't know anything, I think that's more like being in neutral because you're like, I have inherent worth. It's not.
I like
so
that.
One down to me is like, I feel crummy about myself, which is not true about you. So for me, one down isn't so much humility. It's like, I feel crummy inside and I'm going to take so-and-so down with me.
That's a really good distinction.
Yeah, because when you're able to be humble, you're also kind of recognizing I'm not better than other people, but I'm also not less than other people, right?
Right.
And
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I'm saying less than in terms of it's almost it's a distortion.
Yeah, because the one down has this negative connotation to it, and I think it's because we fall into an all or nothing perspective on ourselves when we're in this one down. We should on ourselves. I shouldn't be one down.
There you go. Yeah.
And yet it's, I think of was it Collins wrote that research for Harvard Business Review, like really going from good to great. And he talked about effective leaders of companies that went from good to being great. The leader, they thought a lot of it related to the leader itself and the characteristics of the leader. They didn't necessarily conclude it was always about the leader, but they did find one inherent quality trait, and it was humility.
Nice.
Which kind of goes into another thing we do to try to connect with people and get people to like us, is we steal the spotlight.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes.
So what do we mean by that? We mean like somebody's talking about something about themselves and the spotlight's on them, but then we respond by making the conversation about ourselves. And now the spotlight is on me. And we don't always do that out of this narcissistic tendency. Sometimes it's out of a sincere desire to connect with people. And yet we don't realize I've just stolen the spotlight from this person. I'm trying to connect and say, hey, look, we have this in common. Yeah, isn't this great?
Totally.
And the other person can feel like,
well, I was talking about my experience, and now I'm not.
Right. Yeah. So, okay, I guess it's all about you right now. And it's not our intent.
So many things in life can be summarized with Saturday Night Live sketches. Did you ever see the Debbie Downer one?
Oh, years. Yeah.
Okay. So it's been a long time, and I'm blanking on the name of the actress, but it's it might be Rachel something, but it's like, it's so perfect because instead of stealing the spotlight of like, oh, I'm so great, Debbie Downer steals the spotlight in I have it worse.
Yeah.
So someone will say like, oh man, I had to bring my cat to the vet and it's so expensive. And Debbie Downer will be like, well, I have 4 cats and they're all dying and blah, blah, blah. Like, again, and she does it so perfectly.
Yeah. And it can sound like almost humility.
Yeah. Like
because it's self-deprecating in a way, but it leads with self nonetheless.
Oh, and then after she says it, after she speaks, someone in the band goes, wah, wah.
Exactly.
It's like right on cue.
Yeah. I got to look that up again.
Yeah, totally. So, to your point about stealing the spotlight, we do it both with wanting to, be one up and be one down.
Yeah, as long as I'm making it about myself.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, yes.
And there's a lot of ways people do that, right?
We do. We do. And it kind of can be like, I think of Eeyore. Eeyore is like, oh boy.
Nothing ever works out for me.
Yeah, and so it's, I'm glad you brought that up because I hadn't thought about that, but that's a really important distinction too, that we can, as long as we're making it about ourselves and stealing the spotlight, and sometimes it is well intended. I just want to make a connection and I'm looking for common ground and think that this person's going to feel connected with me. And in fact, they may feel disconnected with me because it feels to them like I just stole the spotlight.
Exactly.
So we want to be reading people's body language too. If people kind of look down, if they sort of shut down, they look away. Yeah. But a lot of people, we're just so kind of consumed with ourselves to make the connection that we miss all those cues from the other person telling us,
So if you are someone that tends to, or maybe you notice about yourself that you're someone who steals the spotlight, whether by kind of hijacking the story into something that happened to you or something to talk yourself up, you can come back from it by being aware and saying like, oh, actually, you were saying something. I've done it before where I'm trying to connect with someone and I'm like, oh my gosh, that happened to me too, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll be like, oh, actually though, go back to your story.
That's great.
You can recover.
You can.
If you catch yourself.
Well, and it's a great way when we can catch ourselves doing that to shape our own behavior.
Yes.
Because I'm interrupting the behavior. I'm stopping that. Now I become more mindful of it. Yep. And as I'm more mindful and aware of it, I can accept it and just adjust now and be, and how empowering is that to the other person? Yeah,
totally. Because they're like, oh yeah, okay. Like, thanks for, course correcting.
Yes, right. I think it's super empowering to the other person too when we can do that. And that's a big part of our mission statement here at Nystrom is we want to empower people to be the best version of themselves.
Yep.
And it's so disempowering when we make it all about ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, I catch myself a lot of times saying to people, am I talking too much? And
I'll say that too.
I don't know why I asked the question. What's someone going to say? Yeah. You're really kind of a narcissist. Would you just shut up, Brett? But I'm saying it to catch myself.
And right. Because right there you said, why, what is the purpose of saying something like that? Because would somebody actually say, yes, you are? Probably not. But what you're doing is you're signaling that you're aware that you've been talking more than the other person or more than you might want to.
And so this is the key, I think, in a very simplistic way, to really, this sounds, I don't know, it's kind of nebulous and hard to kind of put our hands around it because it's not super concrete. Mm-hmm. But what we're saying is, even in these examples, be your authentic self.
Yep. You
want people to like you. Yep. Well, you want them to like you. So be you.
Yes.
Let them like you. And don't give them this false pretense. Don't give them this false image of yourself. Just be yourself.
Yep.
And do it unapologetically.
Yep.
Unless you realize, I hurt somebody's feelings, then you can apologize. But there's no reason to apologize. Yep. Just be yourself and be authentic. So when you and I say, hey, I think I'm talking too much. I'm sorry. Or, you were talking about yourself and I kind of diverted.
Yep.
That is being authentic with people. That's being in the moment and authentic and very empowering towards people. And I think these ways that we try to get people to like us that are ineffective, notice it's really all about connection and failed or misaligned ways of connecting with people. I try to connect because I perform to get their A words. I try to connect from gossiping. I try to connect by stealing the spotlight.
Right.
And notice that's all kind of about me.
Yep.
And I'm trying to do something to get somebody's approval rather than just be myself.
Exactly. Yep.
So I think this is helpful for us to realize, these are things we do that are not real effective to get people to like us. And I think just catching yourself when you do that is a real tangible move towards being your authentic self. And people are really drawn to that. They're drawn to authenticity.
I think so too. Mm-hmm. So to recap, we had kind of selling yourself short, like kind of the first one was losing yourself to gain approval or the A's,
the
right?
A words.
Attention, approval, affection, etc.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the second one was gossip, an attempt to get closer with someone at the expense of a third person, right? Mm-hmm. And then number 3 was stealing the spotlight, right?
Yeah.
And all these things take just that level of awareness of how am I showing up in my social interactions, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's very freeing when we can do that.
Yeah.
It sounds simple and it's hard.
Yep.
It's hard.
Can I throw in a bonus one?
Yes. No extra charge.
No extra charge. This is on the house. Complaining.
Tell me more.
Okay. So, because I was just thinking, like, as I was kind of summarizing, I was like, are there any that, I'm leaving out? And one that popped into my head is it's sort of like the Debbie Downer thing. Mm-hmm. And it is kind of a way of stealing the spotlight. But it's doesn't necessarily mean you're making it about you per se. Like, you're not saying like, oh, well, I have it worse. You're just like, oh, well, this, and this about this situation is just awful, right? Like you can, so maybe this is just an extension of stealing the spotlight is like, you can make it about you and your life and what's going on with you, or you can be just globally, broadly complaining about everything. Any given situation. So I would say, being negative.
What's the utility? What's the benefit of complaining? Why do we do it?
Yeah, why do we do it? I think we do it to bond. We think we're connecting with other people. Yeah, that's been my experience.
It's the motivation to connect.
Yes. It's like if we all commiserate together.
Yes. See, we're together.
We're together. We're the same.
Kind of leads us into our next topic for next episode.
Perfect.
Which is what we do in these relationships a lot of times to get a connection.
Yep.
There's a boundary infraction. And we build these relationship triangles.
Oh, yes.
And so it happens everywhere. So we're real excited to talk about that in our next episode. Incredibly relevant and practical for every area of your life.
We're going to do a geometry lesson about triangles.
Yes. No, gosh, now we just lost all our listeners.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
But hey, super relevant for every area of your life. That's why we call it Everyday
Therapy. We'll see you next time.
Thank you as always for listening, and please be sure to leave us a review. While this podcast can't be a replacement for therapy, we hope you enjoyed our discussion today and join us again next time. Nystrom & Associates is always available to those who are struggling. If you find yourself in need of support and help, please check us out at nystromcounseling.com.